You might have heard the title and thought, well, that's about animals, right? Well, in a general sense, it is. We will be talking about beautiful animals for sure, but how beautiful can beautiful be when there is of it too many? Now, here goes the rhyme. But on a more serious note, have you ever thought of the beauty all around us, from animals to plants to even us, as we are indeed part of the animal kingdom? Have you ever thought of the secret ingredient of that beauty? If you are a food expert, you will know the answer right away. The secret ingredient of the best dish in the world is the balance between the different flavors. And the same goes here. Some birds are so beautiful that we would want all birds in the world to be just like them. But if that happens, who knows how many other species would die in the process? And back to our beautiful deer. Could there be too many of them? Or even us, humans? Could there ever be too many of us? Well, this is what we're going to talk about in today's episode, and it is a word power episode, so we're going to learn 10 new words in context in the process. This is your host, Danny, and this is English Plus Podcast. Our topic's title for today is Too Many Deer, and the words we're going to learn in this context are tawny, succulent, gambol, commissary, excise, rigorous, consternation, agrarian, ameliorate, and prudent. But before we start with our topic for today, let me remind you that you can practice what you are about to learn in this episode on my website, EnglishPlusPodcast.com. In the show notes, you will find a link that will take you to a custom post that I have created specifically for this episode with interactive activities and a PDF downloadable worksheet you can use to practice further with fun activities. And within the PDF practice worksheet, there will be a part where you can practice words from the previous 4 word power episodes. So don't miss out on this great opportunity to practice what you learn, as this is indeed the only way you can retain the words and add them to your permanent active vocabulary bank. And there's also another link in the description that will take you to my Patreon page, where you can become a patron for $5 a month, or any amount you would like to pledge for that matter, and then you can enjoy the patron benefits such as premium audio series and courses, listen to the podcast ad-free on Patreon, and more. Check out the link in the show notes to see all the benefits and support this show and support me as a content creator. And now, without further ado, let's start talking about too many deer. The deer were beautiful, with big, soft eyes and tawny brown coats. Every evening, they emerged from the forest preserve to feed on the succulent plants in the yards of neighboring homes. In the spring, each doe was faithfully followed by a pair of young. Protected by the camouflage of their coat and total lack of scent, they were rarely detected by most predators. For a few years, this picturesque scene persisted as deer gamboled playfully among suburban yards to the delight of fascinated onlookers. Every year, the audience observed more and more deer. With the increased population, the search for food intensified, so the deer began treating the trees and plants as a kind of commissary offering a variety of foods. In addition, the deer did not frolic playfully anymore. Their eyes were not clear and their coats were scraggly. What had happened and why? If left unchecked, any living population multiplies until it meets or exceeds the ability of the environment to support it. This is especially true when all natural enemies have been eliminated. People in general have been good to the deer, as they excise the thick undergrowth from forests and eliminate predators such as the wolf. Deer thrive under these conditions and soon reach a state of overpopulation. However, with rigorous management, the excess population can be controlled by harvesting a specified number of deer or by introducing predators. But this is not just a story about deer. Human beings are subject to the same rules as every other living population. More than 150 years ago, Thomas Malthus, a British scholar, was alarmed by what he saw happening to human populations. To his consternation, his projections suggested that human population would soon exceed the food supply, which could result in war, disease, and starvation. Fortunately, Malthus's projections did not come to pass because technology has allowed us to produce food more efficiently than he projected. However, he may not have been wrong, just ahead of his time. Recently, World Watch, which is an environmental organization, released a study that showed we may be reaching the limit of what technology can do to increase the food supply. Despite high-yield grains, the per capita amount of rice and wheat is falling. And we're already talking about as many fish from the sea as we should if we wish to avoid damaging the breeding stock. In addition, as farmland is destroyed by erosion and industrialization, the earth is losing its agrarian potential. To ameliorate this problem, we must begin to produce food as efficiently as possible and to avoid waste. If we are not prudent about our choices, nature will take steps to adjust the imbalance. So, that was our story about too many deer. And so, as you could see, it was not exactly about deer, but deer was just an example, and we were just another example. Maybe we think that we are the more important example, but consider that we have been on this planet for only a few million years. But other animals, other species have been here for far longer, and other animals before us that are now extinct lived on this planet for millions of years, a lot more than we have done so far. What I'm trying to say that we are not safe. If we're not careful and if we don't take care of what we have, we might lose it anytime. Because I believe one day if we are not prudent enough about our choices, nature will definitely take measures, maybe harsh measures, to rebalance the flavors in this big dish. We call it our own, but let's face it, it's not ours alone. This earth is for every single living being on it, animals, plants, and us. And now for the word power. Let me remind you again, our words for today are very special, and I bet you will find a word or two that you didn't know about before. And we'll do today just as we did last time. I'm going to ask you to guess the meanings of these words, and then I will tell you about them. I got some positive feedback, and I guess it's a good idea just to make the episode a little bit more interactive. But let me remind you again, our words are tawny, succulent, gamble, commissary, excise, rigorous, consternation, agrarian, ameliorate, and prudent. So let's begin with the very first word, and this word is tawny. Now let me remind you again how we used it in context. We said the deer were beautiful with big soft eyes and tawny brown coats. Well, which words do you think we can use to replace tawny in this context? Does it mean ugly, invisible, golden, or happy? For those of you who chose golden, you're absolutely right, because we're talking about a color here, right? And now for the next word, succulent. First, let's remember how we used it in context. We said every evening they emerged, we're talking about deer here, of course, from the forest preserve to feed on the succulent plants in the yards of neighboring homes. So which word can we use out of the words I'm going to tell you about now to replace succulent in this context, of course? Are we talking about inedible, thorny, poisonous, or juicy? Well, the animals seemed happy. Think about it. Could it be poisonous and the animals happy? I don't think so. So for those of you who chose juicy, you're absolutely right, because succulent means juicy. And by the way, don't worry, we're gonna talk about the words in more detail later. I'm just playing a game with you, and I'm trying to make the episode more interactive, right? But that doesn't mean I'm not gonna talk in detail about the words. Now, let me move to the next word, gamble. And by the way, gamble here, it might sound like something you want to do in Vegas, but we're not talking about Vegas. We're talking about G-A-M-B-O-L. This gamble, not G-A-M-B-L-E, the gamble you would do in Vegas. This one is different. So let's take a look at how we use that in context, and then I'm going to ask you the question. So we said, for a few years, this picturesque scene persisted as deer gambled playfully among suburban yards to the delight of fascinated onlookers. So which word could best replace gamble in this context? Does it mean frolicked, argued, collapsed, or hid? What do you think? Well, for those of you who chose frolicked, you're absolutely right. They were having fun. That's the meaning of gamble. And now for the next word, commissary. Let's take a look at how we use it in context. It says, soon the deer began treating the trees and plants as a kind of commissary, offering a variety of foods. So which word or words could best replace commissary in this context? Does it mean nursery, a meeting room, a burial ground, or a source of food? Well, for those of you who chose a source of food, you're absolutely right. You see, sometimes you might not have heard the word before, but it is a lot easier to guess the meaning of the word from the context. So always look for context clues. We're talking about food here, so it's supposed to be a source of food. But what is it exactly in detail? That's what we're going to talk about later. So don't just leave yet. We're just playing a little game, and then we will talk about the words in detail. And now for the next word, excise. Let's see how we use it in context. We said people in general have been good to the deer as they excise the thick undergrowth from forests and eliminate predators such as the wolf. Which of these four words can we use to replace excise in this context? Is it add, exercise, organize, or cut out? What do you think? Well, for those of you who chose cut out, you're absolutely right, because that's the right answer. And now for the next word, rigorous. Let's see how we use that in context. We said, however, with rigorous management, the excess population can be controlled by harvesting a specified number of deer or by introducing predators. And my question here, the word rigorous here, what does it mean? Does it mean expensive, strict, disorganized, or sloppy? What do you think? Well, for those of you who thought strict, you're absolutely right, because that is the answer. It's not sloppy, doesn't have to do with expensive, and definitely not disorganized, just the opposite. It's strict and organized. That is our word rigorous. And now for consternation. Let's take a look at how we use that in context, and I will ask you the question right after. In our story, we said to his consternation, his projections suggested that human populations would soon exceed the food supply, which could result in war, disease, and starvation. So what does that word mean? Does it mean relief? Does it mean alarm, amusement, or excitement? To his consternation, was it his relief, alarm, amusement, or excitement? Well, for those of you who thought alarm was the right answer, actually it is. Consternation is very close in meaning to the word alarm. And now for the next word, agrarian. Let's take a look at the context. We said, in addition, as farmland is destroyed by erosion and industrialization, the earth is losing its agrarian potential. So the earth is losing its agrarian. What does that mean? Which word or words do you think we can use to replace agrarian in this context? Can we use agricultural instead? Possibility for happiness? Criminal or architectural? What do you think? Well, for those of you who chose agricultural, you're absolutely right, because that's exactly what agrarian means. And now for the next word, ameliorate. Let's take a look at how we used it in context. We said, to ameliorate this problem, we must begin to produce food as efficiently as possible and to avoid waste. So which word could best replace ameliorate in this context? Is it disguise, relieve, exaggerate, or highlight? What do you think? Well, for those of you who thought relieve is the answer, it's actually the answer. It is the correct answer. And now for our final word for today. But please don't leave yet. Our final word in this little question game we have. But it's not the end of the episode. I will talk in detail about all these words. So please stay with me after we finish this last question about prudent. Let's take a look at how we used it in context. We said, if we are not prudent about our choices, nature will take steps to adjust the imbalance. So when we talk about prudent, what do you think it means? Does it mean wasteful, reckless, wise, or careless? Well, for those of you who chose wise, you are absolutely wise, because that is the answer. Prudent means wise. So these are the words, and I wonder how many of those you got right. If you got right like 5 or 6, that's great. If you got them all right, that's perfect. If you didn't get any of them right, don't worry, because that's exactly what we're going to talk about. And even if you got them all right, I assure you there's still more for you to learn in what I'm going to talk about next. So stay with me, don't go away, because I will talk in more detail about our 10 words from today's episode, Too Many Deer. So let me start with the very first word, tawny, which is spelled Tawny. Now, we said the deer were beautiful with big, soft eyes and tawny brown coats. Now, what do we mean when we say tawny? When we talk about tawny hair, fur, or skin, it's kind of a pale brown color or light brown, brownish orange color, or golden, if you may. If you want to take the easy road, it's golden. For me, I have a problem with colors. I can't see the difference between a lot of colors. I'm not color blind. I will have to say I'm color stupid. But anyway, tawny is about the color, and we can use it for hair, for fur, for skin, and it is a pale brown color or golden color, if you will. Well, that's an easy word. Now, let's move to the next word, succulent. It is spelled Succulent, succulent. Now, how do we use that in context? We said every evening they emerged from the forest preserve to feed on the succulent plants in the yards of neighboring homes. Now, do we use this word succulent only for plants? Actually, we use it even more for food. When we say succulent food, especially meat or vegetables, is juicy and good to eat. And that is not so far from what it means when we say succulent plants. Actually, when we talk about plants, we can also call them succulents or succulent plants. These are types of plants which have thick, fleshy leaves that are actually juicy. And our friends, the deer, loved to feed on those succulent plants. So that's the word succulent. You can use it for plants and you can also use it for food, especially meat or vegetable that is juicy and good to eat. So that was our second word. What about our third word, gamble? Gambol. Remember, I told you, it's not about what you do in Vegas. It's what you do when you are happy. Gambol. Now, let's see how we use it in context. Of course, we used it to talk about the deer. We said for a few years, this picturesque scene persisted as deer gambled playfully among suburban yards to the delight of fascinated onlookers. I'm not sure if you've seen deer before, but if you have seen deer, they're very peaceful animals. They're so beautiful. And if they're having fun, I bet their happiness will transfer to you and you will feel the same happiness when you see deer gamble playfully. So, gamble, what does that mean? If animals or people gamble, they run or jump about in a playful way, like to say frolic or jump or hop or skip because you're happy. So, that was our word, gamble, Gambol. Remember, it's not Gamble, which is gamble when you place bets and stuff. And now for our next word, commissary. That is Commissary. How do we use that in context? We said soon the deer began treating the trees and plants as a kind of commissary offering a variety of foods. Well, a commissary here, as we talked about it in the questions, it simply means a source of food. But what is a commissary? Well, actually, a commissary is a shop that provides food and equipment in a place such as a military camp or a prison. So technically, you can go there, you can get the food for free, but of course, only if you belong to that place. But anyway, here, that is a commissary. Of course, it's important to know what a commissary is, but in our context, you can see that we can use sometimes some words and not in their literal sense. We can use them in a little bit wider sense, and here we're just talking about a source of food, okay? But remember, the commissary is this shop that I told you about. So, that was commissary. What about the next word? Excise. That's what we're going to find out about next. So, back to our words. And our next word is excise. Excise. Now, how did we use that in context? We said people in general have been good to the deer as they excise the thick undergrowth from forests and eliminate predators such as the wolf. People do these things. They hunt the wolf, they cut the thick undergrowth from forests to make paths and stuff, but that helps the deer. That helps the deer thrive. And our word here is that they excise the thick undergrowth. We're talking about people here. What does that mean? If someone excises something, they remove it deliberately and completely, like to delete, to cut out, to remove, to erase. That's the meaning of excise. And now for our next word, which is a very interesting word, by the way, rigorous. It's rigorous, rigorous. How do we use that in context? We said, however, with rigorous management, the excess population can be controlled by harvesting a specified number of deer or by introducing predators. So here we're not talking about just simple management. We're not talking about casual management. We're talking about rigorous management. So what does that mean? Well, let's say we're talking about a test or a system or a procedure. And here, actually, we're talking about a system or a procedure. When we say this system, this test, this procedure is rigorous, we're talking about something that is very thorough and strict. Every single detail is accounted for. That is what is rigorous. And when a plan is made, it is followed to the letter. That is what rigorous means. Strict, hard, firm, demanding. And here, we're talking about rigorous management because it's not easy. We cannot just go about that being casual. We need rigorous management, and this problem can be solved, of course. So that is our word. I can already see that in your mind, you're starting to think about many ways you can use this word, or too many contexts you can use this word in your own speaking and writing. And now let's move on to the next word, consternation. That is consternation, consternation. It's a long word, I know, but it's very easy. Let's see how we use it in context. We said, to his consternation, his projections suggested that human populations would soon exceed the food supply, which could result in war, disease, and starvation. Well, what does that mean? When we talk about consternation, it is simply a feeling of anxiety and fear. That is consternation. Like when we say dismay, shock, alarm, or horror. That is consternation. And I admit, this is a formal word, and some of these words are not going to be used in everyday language, I admit. But remember, you need some of these smart words, you need some of these big words when you write something, or in specific occasions when you want to use those big words because the occasion is big and it requires words like that. But anyway, I tried to balance the equation here. Some of the words are used every day, some of those words are formal, some of the words are used in specific contexts, because to be honest with you, we need all these words. We cannot just learn words that we use in everyday conversation and call it a day and say that we know everything about English, or just learn formal words or literary words and think that we know everything there is to know about English. We need to know about all of these things, and I'm trying to make it as balanced as possible, just like a chef, right? Okay, now let's get back to our words, and we still have 3 words to talk about, and that's what we're going to do next. We're going to talk about agrarian, ameliorate, and prudent. So, let's start with agrarian, agrarian, agrarian. Now, how do we use that in context? We said, in addition, as farmland is destroyed by erosion and industrialization, the earth is losing its agrarian potential. So here we're talking about something that has to do with farming, with agriculture. Agrarian means relating to the ownership and use of land, especially farmland, or relating to the part of a society or economy that is concerned with agriculture. So we're talking technically about agriculture. And here, we're talking about it in an alarming way. The earth might be losing its agrarian potential. Now, we've already lost a lot. We haven't lost it all, of course. If we lost it all, we would all be dead by now. But the point is that we are losing it. And the earth is losing its agrarian, its agricultural potential. That's our word, agrarian. Now for the next word, ameliorate. That is ameliorate, ameliorate. How do we use that in context? We said to ameliorate this problem, we must begin to produce food as efficiently as possible and to avoid waste. Now, if someone or something ameliorates a situation, they make it better or easier in some way. So just like to improve it, to make it better, to reform it, something like that. That is to ameliorate. Again, this is a formal word, I know, but remember that you need those words, okay? And now for our final word, prudent. 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 Now, in the context, we said if we are not prudent about our choices, nature will take steps to adjust the imbalance. So what are we talking about here when you are prudent or not prudent? Now, someone who is prudent is sensible, wise, and careful. That's the meaning of the word prudent. And with that, we've talked about 10 words in our context today. Too many, dear. We talked about tawny, succulent, gamble, commissary, excise, rigorous, consternation, agrarian, ameliorate, and prudent. And I hope you add these words to your permanent active vocabulary bank. And that is a lot easier if you take the link you can find in the description. Go to my website, EnglishPlusPodcast.com. Go to the custom post I created for this episode with interactive activities, the PDF practice worksheet that does not only give you exercises and fun activities for this episode alone, it also gives you activities for the previous 4 episodes. So just go there, download the PDF. If you like paper, you can print it out, you can do it. Or if you like to practice digitally on your phone, on your tablet or computer, you can do that because I have interactive activities that you can do directly on the website. And trust me, that is very important because it is not enough just to listen to the episode. If you have the chance, please go to the website and practice because that is the only way you are going to retain these words and add them to your active vocabulary bank. And don't forget about the second link that will take you to my Patreon page. You can become a patron today and enjoy the benefits for only $5 a month. You will get a lot of benefits, including the ad-free episodes, the exclusive audio series and courses, and more. You can check out the benefits you will get if you become a patron if you follow the link. And with that being said, that'll be everything for today. I would like to thank you very much for listening to another episode from English Plus Podcast. This is your host, Danny. I will see you next time.